Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Welcome to Clause YouTube channel, Strategic Frontline podcast. I'm Nagamalleswara Rao, research assistant at Clause. Today we're joined by Ashu Maan. He's a associate fellow at Center for Land Warfare Studies. He's also pursuing his PhD at Amity University, and he worked at Institute of Chinese Studies. So today, our topic is on China's strategic calculus in the wake of India-Pakistan tensions, post-Pahalgam incident. So when the terrorist attack in Pahalgam happened on April 22, 28 civilians were killed by terrorists, and including two foreigners, three government officials, one from Indian Navy, one from Air Force, and one from IB. The incident is attributed to the Resistance Front, which is an offshoot of Pakistan-based terrorist organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, and this makes it more serious. Um, and the escalations after the incident has continued, and in a response, India has started various diplomatic and military responses. The Cabinet Committee on Security has issued various announcements like suspension of Indus Water Treaty, closing the main Wagah Atari border crossing, and India also implemented travel ban on all Pakistani nationals, cancelling their visas, and expulsion of military advisors in Pakistan High Commission in New Delhi. So Pakistan's reaction to this was, it. Of course, obviously, we can expect this statement from Pakistan. It has denied the involvement and rejected the alleged allegations. And however, if we see the military posture of both sides, the troops are on high alert along the LOC, and the surveillance, air patrols, and forward deployment were intensified. Let me set the stage for how China fits into this crisis framework. When we What we do here in this podcast is to focus on balance, strategic depth, and aiding our broader policy-oriented audience. China occupies a unique and a complex position in India-Pakistan crisis landscape. While we cannot directly bring China to the party of Pahalgam attack, but the strategic interest that China has been showing in South Asia, especially its deeper ties with Pakistan, and has some implications for broader tensions and the imminent Indian military action which would take place in future. Beijing has continuously backed Pakistan diplomatically and economically, um, which it has notable significance for China because its CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, passes through Gilgit-Baltistan, which is the territory of India. Um, and furthermore, if we think of what is the movements that has been happening after the incident, China's call has been use restraint and engage in dialogue. However neutral it may look, but there's a masked underlying strategic tilt towards Pakistan, especially in the UNSC Council. Let me give you two broad questions. One is like, will China act as a crisis manager, or a silent backer, or regional balancer? And the second broad question is how China's broader competition with India might manifest along the LAC line of actual control, shaping its calculus. So, Ashu, let me begin with basics. What is China's immediate diplomatic response to the post Pahalgam incident?
Rao, first of all, thank you for having me. When we talk about China's immediate diplomatic response, so their first response right after the attack appeared very straightforward and principled. On April 24th, the Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson strongly condemned the attacks, and his exact words were that China firmly opposes all forms of terrorism, and simultaneously they expressed sincere sympathies to the bereaved families and injured. Uh, Additionally, the Chinese ambassador to India also tweeted the same, where he said that he was shocked by the attack, and they opposed terrorism in all forms. However, this initial condemnation quickly evolved into a nuanced position. Within days, China's diplomatic machinery shifted to support Pakistan while maintaining a facade of neutrality. This became evident when China's foreign minister held a telephonic conversation with Pakistan's foreign minister and expressed China's concerns over the evolving situation. And in parallel, China and Pakistan have been working behind closed doors to dilute the UN Security Council condemnation of the Pahalgam attack. Unlike the strong Pulwama statement in 2019, the UNSC statement after Pahalgam conspicuously avoided direct support to India's investigations, and it even left out naming the resistant front as perpetrators of the attack, and that was all due to China's backing to Pakistan in the UNSC.
So, you're talking about the diplomatic support Pakistan has been receiving. What support otherwise has Pakistan received from China since the attack? Can you explain a little bit more?
So, diplomatic support is something that China has been providing to Pakistan for a long time. And since Pahalgam attack, it has both been vocal and strategically calculated. So immediately after the attack, as I said, the Chinese ambassador expressed condolences. He condemned terrorism in general terms, and he didn't name Pakistan. However, the initial neutrality quickly evolved into kind of an overt support for Pakistan. China's foreign minister reinforced the same stance on April 27 when he reaffirmed Pakistan's status as an all-weather strategic cooperative partner, and he emphasized Beijing's commitment to Islamabad's, and I quote, sovereignty and security interests. Now, when we talk about military collaboration, while overtly there are no new large-scale arms transfers to Pakistan, which have been reported since the attack. China's role as Pakistan's primary military patron remains central to the bilateral relationship. In the last 5 years, China has accounted for 81% of Pakistan's arms import. That includes advanced systems like the JF-17, the V-24 battle tanks, or the Type 54 AP frigates.
Okay, since you're talking about economic and strategic exchanges between China and Pakistan, um, can you elaborate more on like to what extent China's economic and strategic investments in Pakistan do they limit its ability to stay neutral while India-Pakistan tensions are going on, or how do you see it?
Well, it certainly does affect China's neutrality in broader India-Pakistan tensions, but that's not something that is new. China has always been supporting Pakistan. Even during 1965, they started putting pressure at Nathula on India when they asked India to vacate Nathula and Jalipla to support Pakistan and put pressure on India. Similarly, the CPAC is the main irritant. So because China cannot stay neutral, and they have a $62 billion investment in CPEC, particularly its critical infrastructure in Gilgit-Baltistan and Gwadar port, and along that they supply Pakistan's 81% of Pakistan's arms. So it fundamentally erodes Beijing's capacity for neutrality in India-Pakistan tensions. And by embedding itself in Pakistan's economic survival and military readiness, China has transformed into a de facto stakeholder in Pakistan's strategic posture, as evidenced by the UNSC maneuver to dilute resolutions against Islamabad post Pahalgam. This interdependence locks Beijing into defending Pakistan's territorial claims and security policies, even when they conflict with India's interests, as seen in its refusal to endorse. When the as seen in their refusal to endorse India's terrorism investigations and its framing of Kashmir as a dispute. So while China seeks to preserve trade ties with India, its CPEC commitments and military industrial symbiosis with Pakistan render any genuine neutrality implausible, and that's a reality that's underscored by Wang Yi's pledge to safeguard Pakistan's sovereignty and security.
So, since our today's topic is to understand strategic calculus of China, um, can you brief us on strategic convergence? I'll ask you a direct question. What are the signs of increasing explicit China-Pakistan alignment in this context, either military, political, informational? Focus more on global social media, the influence operations, how China has been aid and ally for Pakistani military information influence operations.
Okay, so when we talk about strategic convergence, let's see China's broader strategic goals, right? China has always been, in the past decade or so, it has been betting for a multipolar world, but it wants a unipolar Asia. And India is a big irritant for China in that sense. It cannot be a unipolar pole in Asia until it stymies India's growth. Similarly, Pakistan, while does not have such grand ambitions as China, it also wants to contain India's, and that's where the strategic convergence comes in. Add to that the CPEC. So on top of it, it seems like a network of road and railways, but it's just not about that. It's got a strategic edge. Take Gwadar Port. China's funding this deep sea hub on Pakistan coast, and it's perfectly positioned near the Strait of Hormuz, which is a global oil lifeline. Now, experts see it as a future naval base for China, giving them a foothold in the Indian Ocean, which they so desperately seek. Then there's the talk of military hardware. China's arming Pakistan with fighter jets, co-producing them. Then on top of that, regular joint exercises. For India, it's a two-front squeeze. China from the north, Pakistan from the west, and politically also they are as tight. China has been vocally supporting Pakistan on Kashmir directly. That challenges India's stance. And at the UN, they move in lockstep to counter us, like after Article 370 revocation in 2019. When we talk about their joint statements about stability in South Asia are thinly veiled jibe at India's influence. Then let's flip to the information front. Global social media. After the 2019 Pulwama attack, hashtags like "Say No to War" spiked on Twitter, and many of the originators of those hashtags were linked to China and Pakistan, which were trying to flip the narrative that it was a attack that was an internal sabotage or done by India to show Pakistan as an aggressor. On top of that, China's global media houses like the Global Times, they caused Pakistan's line on Kashmir, and they both push coordinated digital campaigns to try to sway global opinion. and add in suspected cyber attacks on Indian systems, and you have got a modern information warfare tag team. Now, this is not subtle anymore. It's bold, it's multi domain strategy to box India. For us, it's a red flag militarily, diplomatically, and digitally. We are in their sights, so it's time for us to step up our game because the alignment will only get sharper and we have to counter them.
Uh, as you mentioned about the in the strategic convergence, China and Pakistan have been engaged in defense exchanges. So, can you look at the reports? Like there are a lot of reports which suggest that otherwise. Do these reports about Chinese arms support, tech collaboration, and diplomatic statements confirm a deeper strategic convergence?
Yeah. Well, the evidence is overwhelming. On arms, China is not just supplying Pakistan with weapons, they are co producing advanced systems with the JF 17 Thunderbird, with over 100 in Pakistan's Air Force, tailored to counter India's capabilities. Reports also points to China providing wing loom to drones, and then there are your Type 54A frigates, and they are aimed to boost Pakistan's naval and surveillance edge. Now, tech collaboration goes further. Take the Baidu satellite system, where China is sharing navigation tech with Pakistan's military, trying to enhance their missile navigation tech with tech and battlefield awareness, which is a direct challenge to us. Then there is CPEC, the $62 billion corridor. That's as much as about strategic infrastructure, the Gwadar port, which is a potential Chinese naval hub in the future, and it's as much about military as it is about economy. Now, diplomatically, the convergence is crystal clear. China's consistent backing of Pakistan on Kashmir, from UN statements to bilateral talks, mirror Pakistan's line, especially post 2019 when we revoked Article 370. Now, in joint statements, they preach regional stability, and I think they are coded swipes at India's influence, while both Pakistan and China coordinate to block India's UN Security Council ambitions. So when we see them, these are not isolated moves. They are pieces of deliberate strategy to encircle India, military along our borders, technologically in cutting-edge domains, and diplomatically on the global stage. For us in the defense community, this is a wake-up call. And China and Pakistan are forging a tighter access to counter our rise, and we need to respond with sharper military readiness, robust tech development, and stronger diplomatic play.
So, as you explained on strategic convergence, so what is this strategic convergence implications on India and LAC dynamics? So, let me ask you: will China's exploit India-Pakistan tensions to apply pressure along LAC? Um, is this a part of a broader, how can I say, strategic pattern?
Okay. So, look, when it comes to China exploiting the current tensions to put pressure on us, the LAC, arguments can be made for both sides. In context of China's strategic calculus, exploiting the current tensions to apply pressure on LAC is a plausible scenario, and it aligns with their broader strategic pattern. Historically, China has leveraged its alliance with Pakistan as a tool to unsettle India, to ensure that we remain engaged in regional conflicts rather than focusing on global ambitions. The CPEC further complicates this dynamic by creating economic and strategic dependencies that China can exploit to influence Pakistan's actions. Given China's consistent support for Pakistan, including military aid, diplomatic backing, it is reasonable to assume that China might use heightened tensions to its advantage, potentially through coordinated military maneuvers or strategic opportunism along the LAC. Now, this approach will not only test India's military preparedness, but it can be also be aimed to serve as a deterrent, keeping our defense planners on high alert and diverting resources away from broader strategic objectives. However, an argument can be made against this too. Right now, China is itself going through an economic slowdown. Add to it the mounting pressure from the US on tariffs and trade, and we see that China is trying to stabilize its relations with India. We see that there has been de-escalatory measures in the economic and diplomacy realm, with the resumption of Kailash Yatra and discussion on resumption of direct flights. So it gives them a chance not to use these tensions to put pressure on us. Anyway, the de-escalation has still not taken place at the LAC. So any attempt by Chinese to apply pressure there won't have much effect due to India's posture at the LAC.
Okay, since you're arguing that a pressure on India may be possible, how should India integrate the China factor while responding to while responding to Pakistan's militarily and diplomatically?
So I would argue that India must adopt a nuanced, multi-layered approach to integrate the China factor into our military and diplomatic responses to Pakistan. Militarily, we are dealing with an all-weather friendship between China and Pakistan. So any action against Pakistan, like a strike along the LOC, must account for potential Chinese support, be it advanced weaponry or intelligence. Now, this means India needs to bolster its dual front preparedness. That means strengthening defenses along both the line of actual control and the line of control. Now, diplomatically, isolating Pakistan is key, but China's UN Security Council veto power complicates this. So we should leverage our growing ties with US, which has voiced support post Pahalgam, and alongside Russia and the EU, to build a coalition that counters China's influence and pressures China to rein in Pakistan. However, China's calculus is not one dimensional. Its massive investments in Pakistan means a full-blown conflict would hurt its economic interests, giving India an opening to signal that stability benefits all three nations. At the same time, we cannot ignore China's opportunism. It might exploit these tensions to tie India down in South Asia, distracting us from other pressure points like the Indo-Pacific region. This balanced strategy that would entail military preparedness, coalition building, ensuring that we address Pakistan's aggression while navigating the complex shadow of China's strategic ambitions.
So, as you mentioned, South Asia, while responding to the question on LAC, pressure on LAC, let me ask a question which is a little bit broader uh, geopolitically. Um, how does the US-China rivalry affects Beijing's position in South Asia, especially aimed at India-Pakistan tensions?
Look, the US-China rivalry has fundamentally transformed China's approach to South Asia, and what we are seeing post Pahalgam is a textbook example of opportunistic positioning. China is not just backing Pakistan out of some historical friendship; they are playing a much deeper game here. This is not surprising to those of us who have monitored China's strategic behavior over decades. Beijing's desperately needs CPEC to succeed. They have sunk billions into it. And with the US deepening ties with India, especially after the defense technology agreements, China cannot afford to let Pakistan appear vulnerable. What's particularly telling, and I have observed this in several crises since 2013, whether it was the Depsang standoff in 2013, the Doklam standoff in 2017, or the Galwan incident in 2020, is that there is a disconnect between China's public and private messaging. They will
Yeah.
call for restraint at multilateral forums, whether it's the UN or BRICS, and simultaneously they will be positioning forces along the LAC. We saw this during the previous standoffs. So the reality is straightforward. China sees any India-Pakistan crisis as an opportunity to advance its positional advantage at the LAC while keeping India strategically open.
Okay. So uh, we can say that like there is a Cold War like structure emerging in between the US and China in South Asia. Um, we know that Pakistan plays its cards with both of them in the past, and it has been doing this. So, do you think Pakistan is a pivot to China or US, or who is pivot and who is the one who is leading?
Okay. So these Cold War dynamics have been going around for a long time, right? Uh, neither country officially recognizes it, neither the American government or the Chinese government, but their action says it out loudly. U.S. terms that they are in an extreme competition with China. China says that US has to come out of this block mentality or the Cold War mentality,
Yeah.
but China is doing the same thing, right? They are building blocks, whether it's in South Asia, whether it's in West Asia, they are doing that, right? So the intensifying rivalry between US and China does mirror Cold War era bloc politics, with Pakistan serving as China's strategic anchor and US countering through deepened engagement with Bangladesh and their reapproach or relook at Myanmar. So China's all-weather partnership with Pakistan, it has kind of evolved into a quasi-military alliance, and we have seen all types of examples of that. Uh, so this access allows China to project power westward while keeping India strategically pinned through cross-border terrorism and LAC tensions. In response, the US has accelerated efforts to cultivate Bangladesh as a maritime security partner, and this was evidenced by Lieutenant General Vowell's March 2025 Dhaka visit, where he discussed advanced defense equipment transfers to Bangladesh and the upcoming Tiger Lightning joint exercise. So simultaneously, US is also reassessing its Myanmar policy to counter China's post-coup dominance there, and this pattern reveals asymmetric strategies. China consolidates territorial footholds via Pakistan's geostrategic depth and Myanmar's isolation, while the US leverages Bangladesh's Bay of Bengal position and its supposedly newfound democratic credentials to construct a network of partnerships that challenges China's unilateralism. However, this competition lacks the ideological rigidity of the original Cold War. Instead, it revolves around infrastructure corridors, naval exercises, naval access, control over dual-use technologies. So, crucially, both powers they are exploiting regional instability, whether Pakistan's terrorism financing or Myanmar civil war, to advance containment agendas, risking proxy conflicts that could very well destabilize the region or the subcontinent.
Okay. So now let's look into the future scenarios, and if you see, uh, because we've been talking about the trilateral crisis unfolding, you said it's plausible. What are the likely scenarios, either escalatory or de-escalatory, involving China in this um, like tensions? What do you think of that one?
Okay. When it comes to scenarios, I think there are three plausible scenarios. The first one will be that China attempts to position itself as a mediator while subtly favoring Pakistan. And this is perhaps the most likely immediate scenario based on China's current positioning. China has already called for both sides to exercise restraint and move towards each other, properly handle their differences through dialogue
A
and
pause.
consultation. Yeah. However, China's mediation would likely be undermined by its implicit support for
Ashu,
Pakistan's
can you hear?
position. Yeah, I can. Should
Can
I
you
go?
hear?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, so like I said, that China has already called for both sides to exercise restraint move towards each other, handle their differences properly through dialogue and consultations. However, China's mediation would likely be undermined by its implicit support for Pakistan's position, including referencing to attackers as gunmen rather than terrorists and calling for an impartial investigation that Pakistan has requested. And rightly, any such mediation attempt will be rejected by us. Now, the second scenario that I see is, and which is a more dangerous one, that China provides enhanced military support to Pakistan while maintaining diplomatic ambiguity about its involvement. There are already reports that China may be expediting the delivery of several defense platforms to Pakistan as it prepares for potential conflict with India. As we know, China supplies over 80% of Pakistan's arms, giving it significant leverage. Under this scenario, China could provide advanced weapon system, intelligence capabilities, and technological assistance to Pakistan while maintaining calls for restraint. Now, what would this do? This would escalate the crisis by emboldening Pakistan, and it will potentially force us to consider China as part of its our strategic calculus in any military response. Now, the third one and scenario, and which is a highly escalatory scenario, is that China deliberately increased military activities along the LAC in Ladakh while continuing to support Pakistan diplomatically and militarily. And we have seen that China has previously engaged in border confrontations with India. And so, by creating pressure on two fronts, China could significantly limit our options for responding to Pakistan. But such a move would dramatically increase the risk of a wider conflict.
Yeah.
Now, China's approach to India-Pakistan crisis following Pahalgam was the current approach, publicly calling for restraint, while implicitly supporting Pakistan's position and potentially increasing military support behind the scenes. For our policymakers, China's actions in the coming weeks will be a crucial indicator of whether the situation will escalate toward military conflict or move towards a diplomatic resolution. The international community, particularly the UN Security Council, which has already urged India Pakistan talks, will need to consider China's complex role in any attempt to mediate this dangerous trend.
Yeah, see, India has responded diplomatically, and military action is looming. Um, so, if we had to brief our audience in 1 minute, what are the China's likely moves? What would you say?
Well, China's likely moves will be carefully calibrated. Publicly, they are urging restraint and dialogue, but in practice, they are offering clear diplomatic support, calling for impartial investigations, highlighting Pakistan's legitimate security concerns. So they may quietly expedite military supplies to Pakistan to strengthen their capabilities without direct intervention. At the same time, they are unlikely to cross certain red lines. They would want to avoid stabilizing the LAC in ways that could threaten their own economic interests, especially the CPEC, or disrupt its efforts to manage the complex relationship with India. But with domestic pressure and a focus on other strategic priorities like Taiwan, China will likely stop short of any direct military involvement. Instead, they will likely keep on providing diplomatic cover and indirect support while maintaining a posture of neutrality.
Okay, Ashu, let me wrap up. Um, what I see in your insights is there are like few takeaways. You've been explaining us on how China has traditionally positioned itself during past India-Pakistan escalations, and how that might play in the future uh, tensions. And you also um, very explicitly explain why is the China question so central to India-Pakistan crisis management today, and you have summarize China's. I would be summarizing your talk as China has having this kind of a strategic balancing act, and it is proven that its China-Pakistan alignment has had a long-term trend, and it's also important for us to integrate China angle while we do the crisis planning. It just not applies to not just apply to Pakistan. It also applies to the countries in our neighborhood. Um, Ashu, thank you for your insights on China, and we'll see you in next episodes. With this, we end today's podcast. Our audience may like to check Claw's YouTube channel and our official website for future events and analysis on wide ranging of issues from national security, defense, strategic, and international relations. Thank you, Ashu.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Yeah.